Aqui esta uma versão, bem mais longa, detalhada e estruturada, do seu roteiro, pensada para render aproximadamente, 35 of 45 minutos de vídeo sing mantendo o estilo narrativo envolvente, pesado e sombrio, que evoca JUSU, Part 4, The Hidden Aftermath Extended Version, in the previous episodes. We uncovered the experiments, the methods, the suffering, but now we move forward, not into the past, but into what came after. The idea that such experiments had taken place seemed impossible, unreal, beyond human understanding. But the evidence was undeniable. Photographs, medical reports, eyewitness accounts, each piece adding to a reality that could no longer be ignored. Behind laboratory doors, inside isolated facilities, in places hidden from the public eye, decisions had been made, experiments had been conducted, and lives had been treated as expendable. As these discoveries spread, the world demanded answers, and soon trials began. The most well-known of these were the trials held after the war, where doctors and officials were brought before the court. These proceedings became a turning point, not just for justice, but for history itself. For the first time, the details were spoken aloud, in front of the world. Witnesses described what they had seen. Survivors shared what they had endured. And piece by piece, the full picture came into view. Stories of freezing experiments, where individuals were exposed to extreme cold. Stories of altitude tests, where oxygen was reduced to dangerous levels. Stories of endurance, where the limits of the human body were pushed beyond reason. But what made these stories even more disturbing was not just what happened, but how it happened, because many of these actions were carried out in the name of science, in the name of progress, the belief that the end result would justify the means, and that belief is what the world was forced to confront. As the trials continued, some individuals were found guilty, sentenced, held accountable for their actions, but justice was not as complete as it seemed, because while some faced consequences, others disappeared. Some avoided trial entirely, others were quietly taken in by different countries, their knowledge seen as valuable, their past often ignored. In the years that followed, a new global tension began to rise. The war was over, but a new conflict was beginning. And in this new era, science became more important than ever. Technological advancement, medical research, military innovation, all became priorities. And with that came a difficult decision. What should be done with the knowledge gathered during the war? Some believed it should be destroyed, that no data obtained through such suffering should ever be used. Others argued the opposite, that if the data existed, it could be used to save lives, to prevent future deaths, to advance human understanding. And so, the debate began. A debate that continues even today. Can knowledge obtained through unethical means ever be justified? Or does using that knowledge mean accepting the way it was obtained? There is no simple answer, because on one side there is potential benefit, on the other there is undeniable suffering, and between those two lies a moral line, a line that once crossed cannot be undone, but beyond the debates, beyond the politics. They were people, survivors. Those who lived through these experiences carried the consequences with them for the rest of their lives. Some suffered physical damage, injuries that never healed, conditions that remained long after the war ended. Others faced something less visible, but equally lasting: psychological trauma, memories that returned without warning, fear that never fully disappeared, a past that could not be forgotten. And for many, there was no closure, because not all stories were told, not all voices were heard. Some were lost, some remained hidden, but their impact remains. As time passed, the world began to reflect, to question, to analyze, to understand. And from that reflection came change. New rules were created, new standards were established. Ethics became a central part of scientific research. Consent, transparency, accountability. These principles were no longer optional. They became essential, because the world had seen what happens when they are ignored. And these changes were not just symbolic. They shaped modern science, modern medicine, modern research. Today, before any experiment is conducted, there are strict guidelines, review boards, approval processes, all designed to ensure that what happened in the past is never repeated. But even with these protections, the past still raises questions. Because technology continues to evolve, new possibilities emerge, new boundaries are explored, and with each advancement, the same question returns. Where is the line? How far is too far? And who decides? These are not questions of the past. They are questions of the present and the future. Because history does not exist in isolation. It echoes, it influences, it warns. And that is why these stories matter. Not just because of what happened, but because of what they teach us. Because behind every experiment, there was a decision. And behind every decision, there was a consequence. If you want to see part 5, where we explore modern-day ethical dilemmas in science, and how close we still are to crossing that line, comment part 5 below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because some stories are not just meant to be remembered, they are meant to be understood. And some truths are still waiting to be uncovered.